Guys, we're here. Me and Veg are here. Paul hasn't shown up yet, but he will be here. I talked to him earlier. He had to get something to eat before he popped on. So thank you guys for coming in. I gotta get your chat pop back up, but say hi, Veg.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here with Christine on this Friday night. And rather than the stuff you used to do when you're young, now you're old and you can just sit around and listen to us whine and bitch all night. So, welcome.
And vent and
And then,
commiserate and try to put a fire under some people's butts and make them wake up a little bit to what's going on. So um, that's my goal. A little
yeah,
bit slow down the machine just enough so we have a little bit longer on this planet. I don't know.
I think the only possibility for that is massive civil disobedience, and I just don't see that we have the numbers for that. At least at this point, maybe things
Not
have to
yet.
get much worse.
Not
Um,
yet. Have you been watching that Deep Green Resistance? I just ran into
yes, I
Yeah,
watched
yeah.
him
I ran
today.
into you and
That's right.
Shiva on that side. I'm like, oh my gosh, we run into each other in the same places. It's
It
so
is weird,
crazy.
isn't it? It might have something to do with the algorithms. I'm not sure. It's just that
Maybe. I
it
mean,
sort
but
of
I'm
figured.
I'm subscribed to that channel, so I kind of
Right.
watch it all
Well,
the
I
time.
am now. I certainly am now. Actually, I think I already had been subscribed, but I hadn't watched. I'm subscribed to so many people. It's hard to keep up with what
I
everybody's
know.
putting out, the content.
I think I'm
I
subscribed to 269 channels.
Oh,
Last
that's
I checked.
nothing. That's nothing. I think I'm probably subscribed to 6 or 700. Although a lot of them aren't active anymore. So,
Yeah, I unsubscribed to several after the 2016 election.
mhm.
So there was several that pissed me off so bad I couldn't stand them. Because they were pushing Hillary, and I'm like, don't do that. Just don't do that. I will give you absolutely zero credibility if you're pushing Hillary Clinton on us. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
well, they're the same people that are pushing Biden now. So it's these neoliberals and I don't understand what's happened to the Democratic Party since Clinton, because really they're nothing but Republican light, and it just doesn't seem, even though there's some really good people in the Progressive Caucus that I love, um, the overall party, the party heads are really, um, I don't even know how to put it.
They're
It's
they're just
almost like,
another wing of the right wing party. They're just the same.
yeah, it may be different corporate donors. Like I think they're probably more funded by Wall Street, whereas the GOP are fossil fuel and the Koch brothers, all that stuff.
But they're all funded by fossil fuel.
It's
And
true.
and
It's
that's the
true.
biggest planet eating industry there is the fossil fuel industry, other than the US military. There's that.
Ah, well, there's that too, and that's the other thing I'm concerned with going on in the world today is that there's going to be a war with Iran, and
And they're trying to start one with Venezuela, which is
well,
true.
the
And
Venezuelan thing seems to have calmed down a little
I
bit.
hope so. I'm crossing my
Kind of failed.
fingers.
Yeah, it kind of failed. I think they overplayed their hand a little bit, and Maduro's still in there, and who knows how it's going
And
to
he
play
still has the
out.
support of the people.
Yeah, but the problem is that they're being sanctioned more and more and more, and it's really hitting people hard. They don't have enough to eat, and people seem to still be sticking with Maduro in spite of it, and I think they resent the whole U.S. interference in it, and this Guaido guy claiming that he's the president, no election, and sorry. I think Bernie's actually starting to even come around a little bit on those points. He's not so.
Yeah, he is. I think he always was on kind of that side. He just he can't offend the Democratic Party because he
Mhm.
knows that they will screw him, which they will.
Well,
They will
anyway,
anyway. It doesn't matter what he does.
yeah, I figure he should just go after them. I mean, and be honest about
And
what's
then run
going on.
independent or something like that. But I honestly don't think the 2020 election is really going to be relevant um, because of everything that's going on with the environment.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Not only irrelevant, I think it's probably going to be rigged.
yeah,
I
definitely
and
rigged, but maybe irrelevant.
maybe irrelevant. Yeah. Well, with the EPA being dismantled and
Mhm.
all the government, I mean, they've shut down any sort of checks and balances
Oh yeah, they're
on the
skipping over environmental studies before they do any mining and all that. And Utah's one of the states that's getting the brunt of that.
Yeah,
It,
isn't the Bears Ears National Park or something that they plan on
yeah,
drilling in now?
Escalante,
It's sacred Indian land. Yeah.
and not only that, up by Dinosaur Land, they're trying to do the fracking up there
Hmm.
and make the largest tar sands mine in the country
Oh
up
boy.
up in Vernal. And this is an area I dearly love. I drive through it all the time, and there's already a lot of mining up there, and now they want to frack the hell out of it, and they've been pushing for these tar sands since like I think 2005, and
Yeah.
it's on Native American treaty land. The Ute tribe is there, and the Utah politicians are trying to say that the reservation no longer exists. So
Okay.
it's just nuts. And I've covered this a lot when I went on Graham Elwood's show and when I went on Uphill Media. I haven't done a lot on my channel on that topic, but I have contacts and I'm really hoping to get Robert from the Ute Pack on
Haven't we
my
learned anything from
show.
Canada's experience with the tar sands? But we're the same with the only ones standing up against pipelines here are, well, I mean, some of us leftist types, but mostly it's the native people that are standing up against the pipelines, and they're just being arrested and shut down. It's the same thing that went on in Standing Rock a couple of years ago,
Oh
right?
yeah, it's just about as horrible, and they're poisoning their water supply there too with the mining
Yeah.
already before the fracking, before the tar sands. They're already poisoning the water supply. I always do drive-bys of the reservoirs, and they're pumping all the water out of the reservoirs, using it for mining, and then it gets pumped into a holding pond, a tailings pond. And I've taken video of all this, all my earliest videos, because I started this channel on my birthday in 2018, January 5th. And I didn't do anything for 6 months. And then I started taking some videos of what I seen when I drove by. Um, it just disgusted me. And I started looking into it more, and I'd see these signs, these big billboards that would say, stop the Native American land grab.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what is that about? So I did some research into that and I found out what it was. And then I got a hold of Robert of the Ute Pack from the Ute Indian Tribe. It's an organization that's trying to protect the treaty land and all that. And asked him what was going on. And he's like, yeah, that bishop, because he was on the committee for the natural resource committee. And he was doing everything he could to undermine the Native American rights, and so they could mine on their treaty land
Oh, I see.
and steal water and easements to get through there, put power lines, and just destroy the land there. It's just disgusting. So that's what really fired me up.
Good for you. A lot of people do nothing, so you're actually getting the word out there. We're all trying our best. I mean, we're sort of a minuscule bit
But
of the
together we
media.
are strong, and there's so,
Mm.
it's really given me hope having all of you guys, that we're getting together on my channel and other people's channels. We're getting together, and
Yep.
I think together we are stronger, and we just need to keep pushing and
And
trying
growing
to,
and
yeah,
encouraging people. I see
and be
Sandy.
inclusive, with
Sandy
each other.
says the Seneca Nation is partnering with us to fight the Northern Access Pipeline. They did in 2017 as well. Bravo for the Seneca Nation. And Valhalla says they lie about everything. Well, yeah, that's what they do. So I
Wow,
can actually read the comments. It's really nice.
that is
Having,
awesome. I'm so
yeah,
happy because it gets really hard for me to catch them all.
yeah,
I just gave the link so Val can jump on. Um,
awesome.
Paul wanted both you and Val on, so I don't know.
Well,
Hopefully, Val can get his thing working so you guys
Yeah,
hear each other. I can always hear him, but my other
he
cousin
usually
can't hear
has his
him.
mic muted or something. The last couple of times I haven't been able to hear him, but maybe tonight.
Yeah,
Things
never
seem to
know.
be working out better tonight anyway, overall. I got on here really easily, and I was really worried about it because I was thinking last time I kept going through problem after problem after problem with it. And to this day, I don't know what happened, but anyway, we're
I don't
here.
know either. I mean, the first couple times I did these streams, it worked out great, and then it just all went to hell the last couple times. It's like, that's not fair.
You need
So,
a producer, you know?
I know.
Have,
Well, I have Oz, but
yeah.
he can't be here every
There's
night.
Paul.
There's Paul. Hey, Paul.
Welcome. Hello, Christine. How you doing?
Hello.
How you doing, Paul?
How you doing, Veggie?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good. It's not a great situation that we're dealing with politically here in Canada either. The right wing are taking over, just like down there. So,
Oh,
hey,
hi, Val. I see
hi,
you.
Val.
Val
Can
is
we
here. I
hear
don't know
Val?
if everyone can hear Val, but they're saying hi, Val. Can you hear them? Yes. He's
Yeah,
thumbs up. That's good. Good,
but
good.
his mic
Hey,
is muted.
Veggie, your camera's a little blurred.
Is it? Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder if maybe if I get back from it a bit. It's just the laptop camera. So, is that any better, or it might be some glue on there from the tape I put over it?
Probably.
Gives it this
Actually,
fuzzy look. What's that?
actually, okay.
Don't know why it's so fuzzy.
Um,
I won't buy it.
you guys, I'm on, right?
Yes, you're on. Yeah.
My voice sounds okay. Maybe it's from my end. I don't know. Um,
Oh, veg is a little fuzzy, but
Yeah, that's what everybody tells
I
me.
think
yeah,
Val
they
looks clear.
come.
Can we put the camera in Val so I can see if he's clear? He looks clear from the little portrait.
Val has to talk, but he looks good.
Testing 5 by
If
5.
that helps.
Okay, yeah.
Different lighting, does that help?
Oh, that's a little better.
Okay. I don't know why I'm so fuzzy.
I think you were washed out from the light, and then it's probably your camera's not.
Yeah.
Mine always looked like that until I got the new camera that my producer Oz told me to get, and then it's like crisp. It's like, oh my god, it's showing my wrinkles. Stop.
Oh, it looks better now. It suddenly got better there, Veggie.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, because
So,
it worked out well the last couple of times. I didn't have a problem with it, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching your show on Monday, Chris, and I thought it was great. I mean, you had Val. I think you were there. Veg
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah.
And it was good stuff. I mean, it's not just what people were saying, but the viewer got an overall feel that this is just a great group of people. And I wrote to that effect, made a comment on the video. I think that was certainly an easy takeaway from the show. Just
Well, you are good
nice,
addition to this
bunch
group.
of nice people, you know.
Yeah.
and progressive people, intelligent people. And there's so much on YouTube these days that is just god awful and either mainstream news or I don't know, some childish stuff. So it's really nice to be able to find a bunch of people that you can relate to, that you have the same ideology as, and we're in the minority, so we have to speak out a little bit louder, I think.
I think actually we're probably more, I mean, certain aspects of us probably in the minority, but I think for the most part we're in the majority, and most people just don't have the courage because of the very, very loud opposition.
Yeah.
And they're very mean too, not just loud, but extremely mean, and they'll attack you if you come up with a different position.
Yeah.
That's what I have experienced personally. It's like,
I've
setting up, I
had
don't
some of
care
that.
anything. Until I got this channel, I'm like, to hell with you. I can't talk to me, I want to talk.
Well, this Monday Madness thing, Chris, seems to be a really nice a concept, and I work 3 out of 4 Monday nights.
Well, you're always welcome to come when you are off, though, and I'll always send you a link. So if you happen to be off, you can just jump on, because I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, sometimes I trade out of those Mondays, but folks, if I could start off with something I was reading about, I think a couple of contradictory things. I want to get you guys' opinion on this.
Okay, hold on, Paul. It looks like your microphone's a little low.
Oh man.
Sorry, I just want to get this stuff taken care of at the beginning.
I'm going to move this closer. Is that better?
I hear you fine.
Is this better?
Is it better, Trev? Okay, I don't know.
No,
There's such a delay. I don't know, but let us know if it's not cool. Hey, Kent. Who else haven't I said hi to?
The thing is, through Skype, I know how to adjust it. I don't know how to adjust it outside of Skype.
I don't know how to.
Audio manager. I don't know.
This is just Hangout, so I don't really know, honestly. I mean, there's settings. I'd love to get this down. I just have
I don't know.
control of my own.
But how do I sound, guys, now with the microphone closer? Is it any better?
You sound fine to me, Paul.
Yeah, it was just Trev B5 that said that your microphone was low. Of course, what we hear isn't always what they hear, so.
As long as I don't sound garbled, that was an issue I was dealing with. But
yeah, my last video, it was pretty glitchy.
Yeah, I think the one subject I was thinking of bringing up initially, I didn't prepare too much, but there's a couple of contradictory messages we're getting. One is that the floods are doing great damage to our crops here in the Midwest. That farmers are delaying. Farmers are delaying their growing season, and they've lost. Water has damaged some of what they've stored. We're getting a lot of stuff on that. And then we're also getting a lot of stuff on Trump's tariffs with China, because China primarily imports foodstuffs from us, mostly soybeans. And the soybean farmers have had no exports, so they've had to store them. So on the one hand, we're losing, we're delaying the growing season, but on the other hand, the farmers have this huge surplus of crops. And
a lot of those surpluses got destroyed by the floods as well. 25% of the crops got destroyed, and plus it's been delayed, the new season.
Right.
But on the other hand, we're not exporting them to China.
Yeah, so Trump had just introduced a $16 billion add-on, I think it was, of farm aid to help those farmers out because they have no export markets. And I really think when it comes to this tariff war, that America really is holding most of the cards. And as much as I hate Trump, I think he's going to win this battle, because China is primarily an export-driven economy, and they need to be fed. And
yeah, well, they don't have the land with all those people. They don't have the land to produce the food they need there, so they are kind of over a barrel that way.
And also they don't have the energy production that we have domestically. I mean, they can't. It's not like they can go and suddenly sell off all their treasury bonds and tank the dollar when they cannot afford to have a roiling oil market.
I'm kind of rooting for the no trade, like having all the trade deals just fall apart and not transporting things back and forth. I'm kind of, like I was talking about before, the Cuba thing.
I can understand that. Yeah.
We need to have a much more localized economy.
Yes.
We're too dependent on fossil fuels, and for our food from all over the world that really we shouldn't have access to at certain times of the year. I was in a grocery store today, and they wanted $5.99 for a head of cauliflower. That's Canadian $5.99. So I don't know. I guess that's probably about
a can of it, veggie. A can? You're buying canned cauliflower?
No. I said a head of cauliflower.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
Sorry.
I've never didn't know they made canned cauliflower. That sounds
it's gross. Just one of those weird things we do in Canada, is canned cauliflower. No, but it was $5.99 and I was just I'm going, okay, this is coming. This is coming to all of our groceries. Celery, $4 for celery. And I'm like, I've seen it as high as 5 recently. And I'm thinking vegetables seem to be being hit. And I think probably a lot of the growing season in California, I mean, we get a lot of our produce from California, and I don't know how well the crops are faring there with the fires last year and everything. So I mean, I just see nothing but increasing food prices in the
Definitely.
next year or two, and it's going to keep going and getting worse. So
That's why
um,
we should be growing our own, and we really just need to stop the transport of food across
sure.
the board. We
Yeah,
just need to.
Chris, what were you saying about Cuba? You were saying something about Cuba?
Yeah, we had that chat last time you were on when we were talking about how the embargo affected Cuba, and it ended up being a really good thing because they went to like all organic gardening. They stopped imports and exports, and they were more self-sufficient and just better for the planet. And they didn't get any new tech or
Yeah,
anything.
I think we talked about that on Monday, and I totally agree. Um, Cuba has an outstanding medical program.
Hmm.
I
They're
think,
way better off than we are, even if they don't have all the high tech stuff. They're way better off. I'm
right,
sure they're happier than we are. They certainly have more free
right.
time than we
Well,
do.
remember, material consumption is only a substitute for happiness and self-contentment. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's a poor substitute. It is not in any way. It does not in any way really increase happiness.
Paul, can I step in on this?
yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Val. Yeah.
The this it's called the Cuban Special Period, and when the Soviet Union collapsed, there were no more fuel shipments to Cuba, so they got no fuel to run their tractors or
They had to
fertilizer.
use horses again.
Yeah, they had a lot of tractors. I mean, but at any rate, so they switched to this permaculture model, and they were growing organic food in the farms and growing food in the cities. They were encouraging people to grow their own foods. And there was, I believe, a 25% weight loss, but the death statistics went lower. They had lower cases of diabetes and other problems with high calorie diets. They had plenty of produce, very little meat. They had very little gasoline to run their old cars, and they would have these huge propane buses, like 2 buses hooked together, running on propane to transport people around, kind of city bus line. Um, Horses, using horses,
Yeah, for plows.
you know,
Actually, the
yeah,
city I live in, London, here in Canada, sends our old buses, sells our, I don't know if they sell them or donate them to Cuba. So you go down
yeah,
there, and there's a lot of our city buses that are operating
yeah.
down there. And personally, I hope that we can keep Cuba away from the American influence. I'm not really entirely disappointed that they're still not recognizing Cuba, because we Canadians have a great place to go in the winter. And we don't have any McDonald's down there or Holiday Inn or anything. You go down there, and you can get to experience the actual country and the actual people.
I
Um,
think they're better off for it. I
yeah.
really do.
Mhm.
Yeah, compare it to a country, a neighboring country, which did have massive American intervention. That's Haiti, and you can see the. I'm not saying that that's the cause for the differences of condition, but certainly it didn't help. Is that a Cuban cigar you're smoking there, Val?
Val.
It's a Cuban cigar. Hey, I walk the walk. I just don't talk. I don't just talk the talk. So
There you
I'm half Cuban.
Well, it certainly looks like you're enjoying it. I
My
think
dad from
one of
Cuba.
you guys, it was either Val or Veggie, asked. It was a great question. I think it was on Monday, pondering why America's been so hard on Cuba. I've been thinking about it myself, and I think part of it, a good part of it, is that Cuba is geographically so close to America, and it was sort of like if Turkey had, I don't know if Turkey's a good example, say Ukraine or but yet Germany had next to the Russian border. I mean, the Soviet Union, sorry, when it had Ukraine, or let's use Ukraine today. It was as if Ukraine had a totally opposite market system and political system to the big power. Then, of course, Russia would be focused on Ukraine, just like we've been focused on Cuba since it went into the communist camp. But that would hardly explain our, animus towards Cuba post the Soviet collapse.
Well, interestingly, Fidel Castro in the early 60s, actually, or right after the revolution, was in the US and basically asking for their help in running it. And they only turned to the Soviet Union because they got no cooperation from the Americans at all, because they didn't want anything to do with anything that even hints of socialism, right? And I think this is the same thing in Venezuela that's going on. They just will not put up with a socialist country. They just don't.
I guess we were doing just fine with the Batista regime prior.
The mafia,
the crooked regime. But you're right, you nailed it, and that's why we're giving Venezuela so many problems. So it all comes down to that very aggressive and imperialistic pact known as the Monroe Doctrine, which stated in so many words that Latin America's interest lies within the area of interest of the United States, direct interest. And that gave us carte blanche to meddle in Latin American, South American politics and economics as much as possible, which included an invasion in Grenada, of course, under Reagan.
Yeah, the elephant stepping on the flea.
Right. I mean, can you think of a more imperialistic policy than the Monroe Doctrine? Of course, it was, I guess, a product of its time. But since then, I posit that we've had the Carter Doctrine, which said that stated that anything that goes on in the Persian Gulf is in direct interest of the United States. So we have the imperative to maintain free shipping flow in the Persian Gulf, which again is another arrogant policy, I would say. And now we have a new one saying that anything whatsoever around the globe that affects American interests is we have the right to intervene. I mean, come on, who's pushing the envelope here? We're Trump apparently sending over $8 billion of armaments to Saudi Arabia, the UAE. They in order to quote match Iranian ambitions in the region. I mean, all that's doing is ramping up the situation. I mean, who's the aggressor here?
Well, Israel has a lot to do with it, and the Israeli lobby is pretty darn strong. And I'll say one thing for Carter, in spite of all that he actually did try and bring justice for the Palestinians, which at this point is just. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because under Trump and Netanyahu, I don't know what's going to happen to all the people on the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Are they going to be exiled from there? Are they going to be squeezed into a smaller and smaller space? And I don't get it. I just don't get why America is so eager to do Israel's bidding and so eager to do Saudi Arabia's bidding. I mean, Saudi Arabia is the most extreme form of Islam in the world. I mean, there's no rights for the people over there whatsoever. You cannot practice any other religion but their peculiar, their peculiar take on Islam. They're basically chopping people's heads off as the national sport. They do it in arenas. And yet America seems to see them as this great friend, even though they were likely behind the 9/11 attacks. So I don't get what the connection with the Saudi royal family is in America, and why it has gone on for so long. I mean, that's
Oil. Yeah.
economic interests.
Well, it's also a dysfunctional society, which Brian and I have discussed in previous our shows. It's dysfunctional because they've got this underlying fundamentalism brand of Wahhabi-based Islam, and but the royal family itself, which constitutes thousands of members and cousins and so on, they get all the plum jobs and then have these Western playboy lifestyles, get educated in Western universities and so on, and really have zero interest or zero loyalty to this fundamentalist brand of Islam, but at the same time publicly endorse it and police it. So it is a totally dysfunctional, artificial entity which we've been propping up through oil and or economic aid and weapon aid. So no, basically, America just wants to sell weapons. You know, I guess aside from soybeans, weaponry is as big as arms. Or
You got that right, Paul.
what's that?
You got that right. Yeah, that's our.
Yeah, I mean,
their business. Business is good.
yeah, business is more important than anything, right? I mean, after the beheading of the
Money.
Khashoggi, right? Didn't Trump just go in there and say, "Hey, look, we've got X, you know,
Yeah, we've got billions of
Millions-
dollars worth of arms
billions
contracts.
of contracts at risk here. You know, let's not upset the apple cart. You know."
And
So-
didn't Trump just veto
Yeah.
he vetoed that they were saying to cut off aid to Saudi Arabia, military aid to help with the war in Yemen, and Trump just vetoed it. So there's that. He's also going after, and this is really frightening. I don't know, Paul, how you feel about this, but he is going after the FBI, anybody that's his political enemy now, with this William Barr character, who will do anything he says. And it just, I mean, are they going to say anything when they start arresting the opposition? I mean, do you
Well,
see
Brian
this?
talks about this a lot, and he's a real expert on it. He calls it a silent coup.
Yeah.
And coup d'état. And it's hard arguing against it. I mean, he's saying that the current administration is using extra legal means towards maintaining dominance over a majority, because they're actually a minority, as we're all aware.
Oh,
So,
certainly.
yeah, I mean, Brian follows this. He talks about it on our Facebook page. He puts a lot of stuff. But I was thinking what Val was doing there with the dollar, and I was thinking, you know, we all, of course, remember that Otto Bismarck coined the term realpolitik, you know, which more or less means politics that's practical. I think America's introduced the policy of money politics, and I think that's how we operate.
I can't argue with that. I mean, it's a global economy, and America dominates. And I don't know what's going to happen. I'm terrified for the next couple of years in America. I wouldn't want to live down there, and I don't think Canada's much better. But at least I'm not right in the heart of Mordor, so to speak. You know, I would be concerned if I lived down there. I'd be concerned for the safety of people that speak out against this. And it seems like they're trying to shut down an open society, and they're doing a pretty darn good job of it.
So Chris, I want to ask you, how do you think this is going to end? Are we going to end up in, you know, violence in the streets, or what? I know are you in the boonies in Utah and kind of separated from all that, or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm not so much in the boonies. I mean, I'm in a smaller town, yeah, but I work in Salt Lake, so that's a bigger thing.
How far is that, say, from you?
Salt Lake, it's 45 minutes away.
Okay, so you're not that far. You're not really out in the boonies.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, there really isn't a lot of activism out here. We did have anti-abortion, you know, going against all the stupid laws. There was a protest like there was in every city. So we had that, but for the most part, this state is pretty ignorant. Like
Yeah,
they're really just
conservative. It's a conservative state. So, but Val, where are you? What state are you in?
I'm in the great state of Indiana,
Oh
the
boy.
great state of our Vice President Pence. Who's your?
eh,
Actually, I'm very close to Louisville, Kentucky.
Really?
It's almost a suburb of Louisville. So yeah.
Wow.
So I
So-
noticed you and Brian think that Indiana's the most redneck state that there is.
It is.
You're probably right. You're probably right, man.
It's bad. It's bad.
Brian
So,
knows his politics.
so you're close to Muncie?
Oh no. I'm Muncie's about 100 miles from here. I'm about 100 miles from Indianapolis, and they're having the Indianapolis 500 this weekend.
Ah, okay, yeah.
And they
The great spectacle of blue collar
Burning
America.
fossil fuel burning. Yeah,
How much fossil fuel can we burn in how little time?
Anyone here a fan of NASCAR? I'm just asking.
You got that right, Ben. Burning a lot of fossil fuels, both the cars and the people. Yeah, I hate it. If it was up to me, I'd key every big truck I saw. I'm that kind of guy, but I know there's TV cameras everywhere, and they'll catch you, doing that sort of thing. So, I don't do
Well, I
it.
guess my area is just as bad because close to us is Bowling Green, Ohio, where Brian and I went to school. And that apparently is the center of monster truck pulling or tractor pulling or some ridiculous thing where you see metallic behemoths pulling on each other or yanking on some weighted chain. I mean, I never figured out how this could be interesting. But
Basil Peterson is saying Indiana produced Kurt Vonnegut and Eugene Debs, so there is a history of progressives.
oh, don't forget Hoagie Carmichael,
Okay.
who was a great songwriter. He wrote Stardust, Georgia on My Mind, all that. Yeah,
oh,
Great
I
from Indiana.
love Georgia on my mind. That's what
yeah,
makes me
Hoagie Carmichael, one of the great underrated songwriters from Indiana.
And John Cougar Mellencamp.
oh
And
nice.
yeah, another good one. Yes.
Definitely another good one. Paul, but sometime gosh, we're already almost 45 minutes into this. I know you came a little bit late, but I really wanted to get into your interview with Pauline. There was a really interesting portion that I wanted to explore a little further.
Okay.
Towards the end of the interview, you guys were talking about like animals and animals eating animals, and you had a really interesting position on that. And I don't know, I was kind of more feeling Pauline's, I don't know, feelings on that issue with the, nature. What are you thinking with, like lion snagging like an antelope,
He's
and
touching on animals.
I think that, well, first of all, Brian's position is different than mine's. He
oh,
endorsed.
was that Brian that had that position? I was listening to
Well,
it while I was
Brian's
driving.
position is that all animals suffer at least as much as humans do, and that it is an opprobrious practice to kill animals either for sport or to eat them. Brian backs it up by being a vegetarian. I am not. I'm very sympathetic to his view. My view is that from a evolutionary standpoint, it seems to me that all life on Earth cannibalizes other life forms.
Right. Yeah, that was just okay. I could tell who was talking sometimes because I was listening while I was driving. I couldn't tell, but I'm glad that wasn't you because I'd be like, wait, that's not nature though. You can't make a lion eat vegetables.
But Brian understands that's nature too, and he does not like it, and so that's
So he doesn't like nature.
well, that's one of his, I guess, accusations against God. That,
but God doesn't exist, so.
well, yeah. I mean, the nature of. You're right. I guess maybe
His,
better.
accusation against evolution and DNA.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian comes out as saying evolution is cruel, and I go along with
It
it.
can be, yeah, but there's something called natural selection, which is millions and millions of years. That's how
Right.
species developed, and it's a very delicate balance. I talked with Deanna about this yesterday, how what a delicate balance nature is with between the prey and the predators and all that.
Definitely.
And
Well, first of all, when we talk about evolution, we have to understand that evolution is really about extinction. Okay, because 99+% of all species ever born on this earth have gone extinct. So it's really more of a pruning mechanism. Then you have these accidents that occur, and this is where natural selection kicks in. That these accidents, whatever accidents of birth, actually are better suited for the environment, will actually do better than its competitors. But it's still about competition.
yeah, well, it's sort of like there's a combination. There's cooperation, which is also required to survive the natural
You
selection
mean like
process.
symbiosis and so on? Yeah.
And there's also competition. I think within an individual species, it's more like competition. But when it's actual, like when it's in its own species, like a single species, they have competition with each other, and that's the ones that are going to survive are the strongest of that species. But when it comes to a species surviving among other species, it's like the balance of how one works out with the other. And I just didn't get his point of view where nature is evil because lions eat antelope. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, Christine, he's an anti-natalist. Okay, Brian is.
Yes.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you right now. Okay.
Okay, tell me right now, Val.
There's a variation of soft anti-natalist who just want to stop reproduction. They don't want to kill anybody, or slow it, and even not even necessarily stop it. To the other extreme on this spectrum, there's a spectrum. The other extreme on the spectrum is ephilism, and ephilism is like Thanos in the movie Avengers, or like there's a certain anti-natalist on YouTube who would push the red button and kill everybody. Okay, that his idea is we're better off dead, and if I could do it, I would kill everybody on this planet. And that's called ephilism, and that's life spelled backwards. And there's a certain person on YouTube who's very famous and well known, and I would call him the grandfather of anti-natalism. But he poo-poos antinatalism's too weak for him. He calls himself an ethylist. Okay, and so the anti-natalist at the very other end would be not for killing people, but for slowing reproduction. I would call it soft antinatalism. That's what I would call it.
That's what I am.
Okay, but what about the animals? I mean, I'm talking about animal life. I'm not talking about the species of humans. I'm talking about the rest of nature.
Well, if you're like a vegan or a soft antinatalist, I'm
not a vegan. I have a normal human omnivore diet. I don't believe in factory farming. I don't believe in any kind of shit like that. I believe in eating locally, which I do, and I try to follow as closely as possible. I don't buy what do you call it, factory farmed meat or anything like that. And
the anti-natalist philosophy upsets a lot of people, and you have to be kind of careful when you expound anti-natalism, because
I just don't understand what that is, though. I mean, you can't stop nature. You can't just tell animals not to eat what they eat.
Well,
yeah, and
go ahead, Paul.
I think Brian has, I consider, almost superhuman compassion, and it just bothers him deeply. Bothers him greater than it does other people. The very
he's an empath.
nature of evolution.
Okay, so he's an empath. He should really read the book Tao of Equus, because that, okay, I'm a huge empath too, and I had a really hard time with all of that myself. And then when I read the Tao of Equus, which really explained the prey and the predator relationship, to a higher level than I've ever had it explained to me before. It's kind of amazing, and there's also some science put in there about what happens when predator is caught by prey and eaten by them. Um, Prey animals have a really amazing ability to create endorphins when all of that is happening, and they go into a disassociative state. And that's actually what happens when some of the horse whisperers pull down a horse and keep it on the ground. They're actually going into that disassociative state, and it makes them um,
Well, that's
like die while they're alive, basically.
well, that's fascinating. And I would also add that there's certain, I guess, anti-pain properties within the saliva of a great white shark, say, where the bite, one doesn't really feel it immediately as that puncturing, because it has this kind of topical, pain aspect to it. However, I would say this, that, and I find the study of evolution is fascinating. I'm a big reader of Stephen Jay Gould's books. I highly recommend them. He goes into evolutionary in detail, but I would maintain that the very, what we call the virtues of human society, kindness, compassion, altruism, these characteristics don't jive very well with evolutionary success. In fact, I would argue that these virtues really arose with the advent of civilization, which in essence creates a sort of artificial environment. And Freud himself wrote in The Civilization of Discontents that the hidden aggression that we all have really manifests itself in various forms of neurosis while living within a civilized confines, right? So I agree with Brian. I think evolution is, but I have to read the book you mentioned, Chris. I do think that the process of evolution is a cruel one, at least from a human construct.
Yeah, definitely from a human perspective, it's
Yeah, from a
definitely
human perspective,
cruel.
yes, yes.
You know, one of the saddest things I've ever seen, and I was in a small town not far from here a few years ago, and there was this calf that was roped into the back of a pickup truck, and it was like just crying for its mother, and it was being taken
Oh,
to the slaughterhouse. And okay, it's like, but you see, the thing with that is that kind of horror
that's not natural.
is not going to happen in the wild. In the wild, a prey and predator, the predator is going to kill the prey, and yes, it may be painful, but it's not this whole system that separates the baby animals from their parents, that actually has slaughterhouses and this whole horrific thing that the animal goes through at when it goes to market. That I've seen, like things that, like pigs being just packed into the back of a truck and sticking their noses out trying to get some air, and terrified as this is going on, and they get to the slaughterhouse, they can smell the blood, they know what's going on.
I know, that's more disgusting.
And so, you know, yeah, so this is beyond nature. This is just exploitation of creatures. It's not somebody going out with a bow and arrow and shooting a rabbit because they need a meal. This is a whole industrialized process that is incredibly cruel, and that nobody questions the cruelty or tries to ameliorate it in any way.
See, what made me sick, Veg, is when I went to a meat packing facility where they drop off the cows, and there's this like ramp that goes like this all the way up to the top of the slaughterhouse, and you see those cows in a line being pushed up that ramp, one right after another, and knowing how prey animals work, how they can communicate with each
Mhm.
other non-verbally, and gosh, there's been so many studies on how they can actually communicate, and they don't even have to be,
I
within
tell you,
vision of each other, and
this
they
is going
know,
to
they
drive
know.
me. I tell you, this is going to drive me to become a vegetarian at some point. At some point, I won't be able to take it anymore,
Well, that's
morally.
good.
Yeah, that
You
is
know,
good. I would rather, at least where I get the meat. I eat very little meat. I eat meat once a week tops, and a small portion, not a big
you're
portion.
mostly there. Yeah.
So I'm mostly there, but with what little meat I do get, it comes here from locally. There's all the cows are on pasture until right before. I still hate that thought, and I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I mean, we're omnivores. We can choose to eat meat
Sure. Or
or
not.
or vegetables. We can do either. I was raised on meat, so it's kind of a hard transition, and I'm working really hard on that because I don't want to eat the meat, but I feel a lot better about people who hunt for their food and eat what they hunted and use every bit of it. And I feel
Yeah.
better for the animal that was in the wild and then was hunted rather than one that was raised in captivity, then put in a feedlot and then put through that
Mhm.
process that I witnessed myself. That was just disgusting. I was sick for a couple of years. I mean, every time my mind went to that, every time I saw a cow, I would think of that. And I'm still not over it. I still get that horrible sick feeling in my chest whenever I think about it. It wasn't a pleasant experience,
Did you?
You guys know which company started the mass meat market, right? It was Armour out of Chicago, and I read somewhere that Henry Ford actually visited the Armour plant, and it was from there that he came up with his idea of the assembly line. He felt that since you deconstruct a cow through an Armour plant, he could reverse the process and construct an automobile under a similar process. I think the original Armour factory, meat packing factory, is in ruins today and is overrun by vegetation. But Val made a kind of a movement there, which suggests he was aware of this. Val, did you know about that?
About
Or
what?
heard about-
About
I'm
what?
sorry. No,
About
about the Armour packing plant in Chicago, off Chicago.
Oh yeah, it was a book from the 30s. A guy was writing about the condition.
Yeah, it's called The Jungle by Upton
Yeah,
Sinclair.
the jungle. This is pretty disgusting. I will say this: go to Red Robin, get an Impossible Burger. You'll never go back. Once black, never back. You'll love it.
It's very difficult as a vegetarian to find meat alternatives, and the ones that there are horrendously priced. They came out with this Beyond. I think Bill Gates invested in this Beyond Meat concept, and I thought, okay, these burgers got rave reviews. I'll try them, and I paid like a lot of money for two burgers, and like it's got to be easily 5 times the price of meat. And so it's not easy to replace meat in our diet, and I think that's deliberate. We could have a lot more vegetarian products in the stores and for a lower price, but I think the meat industry actually prevents that from happening or actively works
I'm
against
pretty
it.
sure they do. I don't know, the old fashioned veggie burgers that actually you could taste the vegetables in them. I liked those better than those Beyond Meat burgers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
Isn't that
had
weird?
one. I was kind of going, "What's the fuss all about?" It just tastes like a burger. I wasn't that impressed with it, but
No, it tastes like
apparently it's
bland.
GMO. It's loaded with GMOs and everything.
Yeah,
So
that's what
Well,
I'm worried about is the GMO part.
well, the problem is we got to get people to stop eating meat. So much meat. 7 billion people all want to eat meat. So we got to do something.
Well,
Yeah, we
not
do.
just that,
I mean,
not just that, Val, but while we are witnessing, say, um, animal conscious people moving towards vegetarianism because of their horrors of the slaughterhouse, we're also witnessing large numbers of people adding meat to their diet as a result of the global triumph of capitalism. That more people in India are eating meat now than before. People who formerly ate mostly rice and vegetables, and meat was something like a special treat. Now it's becoming part of the main fare. So actually, the eating of meat is actually growing at great cost to our environment, unfortunately.
Hey, you want to hear something really gross? Remember they had that hurricane North Carolina and the hurricane called the pig farm. I'm not going to go into too much.
Yes, all the poop and
the
all
huge
that.
Shit pond, and it caused the shit to overflow. It was really disgusting. It's disgusting. It's like I'll eat an Impossible Burger.
That was Tyson Foods, I think. It has a big farm, a lot of farms over in that area. They could have moved that stuff, maybe. I don't know. They could have done something to prevent it. Oh, by the way, going back to that Upton Sinclair, The Jungle, I actually read that book when I was in college. It wasn't a great novel. It was actually a novel, but it wasn't great from an artistic standpoint. But boy, it sure had its effect, on the consciousness of people. Because back then they read novels like we today watch YouTube.
I remember reading. People don't read as much as they used to, that's for sure.
No, they don't. But I was raised eating meat every single day, 7 days a week for dinner. Every day we had meat on the table, and that was the main part, and it was a pretty good portion too. So weaning myself off of meat has been a process. But I'm getting good at it, and in fact, I made my husband eat vegetarian spaghetti, and he had a cow at first, and I just put tons of mushrooms in it, and like mushrooms are good; they're just like meat. He loved it though. So,
but could you guys go vegan, say with allowances for like cheese or something like that? I mean, maybe
I have to have cheese. Until I find a suitable alternative to cheese, I can't get cheese.
Soy cheese is horrible. It really is. I've tried non-dairy cheeses, and they just don't work. I don't know what it is. Although I hear that there's some success with making cheeses out of cashews, of all things. There's
that sounds nice to me.
Yeah, there's a local business here that's actually selling cheeses that they make from cashews. So that's an interesting development. I mean, there are alternatives to all these things, but as long as we're in this whole capitalist thing where factory farming is just everywhere. I mean, if you become a vegetarian, the most frustrating thing is to go into the store or go into a restaurant and there's nothing there for you, or very, very little. That's been changing a little bit more, but it's really not easy. It's not easy to do, and it's not easy to eat cruelty free. I try. I'm still addicted to cheese, and so that's my big failing.
Free food. Hey, I see that as a new marketing slogan: cruelty-free food.
Yeah.
They'll have it on the carton of eggs. Cruelty-free farmed. Or. But I guess that's murder too, right? Eating eggs.
No, because you're eating unfertilized eggs. I mean, eggs I'm fine with, not in the conditions that like I buy my eggs, if I buy free range eggs only, and they taste better and they have better nutritional quality about them. But when you see these farms with these tiny little cages and there's hundreds and hundreds of birds that can barely move, spend their whole lives in there. I don't want to partake in that.
I don't either. Hens have one hole, so hey, excuse me, I'm out of there. That's not enough for me. One hole. Probably didn't know that. Now you do. I'm sorry I ruined your eggs.
Oh, that's all right.
What did you say about eggs? Sorry, I was distracted with Chet.
I said hens have one hole. Okay, they have one hole. The egg comes through the hole that it shares with other functions.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have my own chickens. That doesn't ruin eggs for me. I'm sorry.
So,
Okay, just saying.
There's a shell on it, and you can wash the shell.
That's true. It's in a shell,
And that would be such a waste for those chickens to lay those eggs that are not fertilized, so they can't have babies. I mean, what else are you going to use the eggs for? I think that is so cruelty free to use.
What are you going to give your Easter bunnies?
What?
What are you going to give your Easter bunnies? Eggs. I'm just joking. I'm not being serious.
I'm sitting there being serious. Let's see. I give my bunnies carrots and celery and holy bread. I mean, I'm being totally serious in my head because I have rabbits too.
how many do you have?
I only have 2.
Are they pets or are they?
They were pets for my kids, but I found out that their waste is actually super great for gardens, and you don't have to compost it first because it's super cool. So you can put it right immediately on the garden.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm excited. My bunnies have a purpose.
Oh, that's good.
Not that they have that much longer to live. I mean, they were my kids, and of course, they abandoned them, and I get stuck with all the animals they abandoned, but but they have a purpose now.
Did you guys read the story today about that big ark? I guess it's in Tennessee. I'm going by memory here. And it incurred rain damage. Was it rain damage, Val?
Yeah, it was rain damage to an access road.
Okay, so basically an act of God.
Outside of Cincinnati, Ohio.
So is that where it is? Oh my gosh. So anyway,
no, it's actually in northern Kentucky, but it's right outside of Cincinnati.
Yeah, Covington or somewhere. But
is this that religious fundamentalist thing that?
Yeah. So I guess it was their counter display to counter evolutionary displays in museums. But what is ironic is they were damaged by an act of God, which is rain, and now they're suing insurers over the rain damage. A little bit of irony there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, Jesus was asleep at the wheel again. Hey, I'm not to change the whole subject here, but I just wanted to see if what Paul thought, if there was a secret government Manhattan level project working on sucking the CO2 out of the atmosphere, that they're throwing all kinds of money at it, blank check, figure this out. And I want to say this. I'm a pessimist, okay? I'm a very pessimistic person. But I hold out the 1% chance that something is being done, okay? That could save this situation. And Paul's gone, so
I haven't heard. Does such a thing exist, or is anybody doing research on it now, or is that just a pie in the sky?
No, there's nothing there. Look, I thought of the reasons why that they would keep it secret, like the Manhattan Project, World War II Manhattan Project, is that number one, if they admitted that there was this huge program, that would be a tacit admission that climate change is real and abrupt climate change is real. Number two, if it's a blank check, they're spending $1 trillion, and if they fail, then people are going to say, you burn up our money and you got nothing. Okay. Oh yeah.
I don't know if I can answer that, but I will say this: there was some news in the Seeking Alpha website, which is basically a website for stock investors. Allow me to read the headline here. New coalition of big company CEOs pushes Congress for climate action. It said a new initiative featuring more than a dozen major corporations and environmental groups is launching a new effort to urge Congress to pass legislation addressing climate change. And this includes oil giants BP, Royal Dutch Shell, BASF, Dow Incorporated, DTE Energy, Dow DuPont, Exelon, Lafarge, PG&E, Unilever. What do you guys think of that? That was put out on May 15th. Did you guys hear all that? By the way, I had a blank screen.
No, I did not hear of that. No.
Oh, basically, it was a new coalition of big company CEOs push Congress for climate action. So this features more than a dozen major corporations and environmental groups urging Congress to pass legislation addressing climate change. And this includes BP, Royal Dutch Shell, Dominion Energy, Citigroup, Ford, BASF, Dow Inc., Exxon.
So even they realize that the writing's on the wall.
Absolutely, but I'm wondering if this is tied into what Val was saying there.
Well, look, that's nice. They want to write legislation. But what about a scientific program to find a scientific answer to remove the carbon at scale from the environment so we don't die? I shouldn't have said it like that. Maybe that was too harsh.
Right.
So we
What
don't.
are you talking about?
So we don't have a really hot summer, which I'm afraid of. But that okay, great. I'm glad those corporations are doing that. I'm happy for them. They're but they need to have a big scientific program to get an answer for this. A Manhattan Apollo program, you know, and come up with the answer. And because we're kind of all kind of tacitly admitting that this is going to fail, and we're talking about eating Impossible burgers, but there's no big grand solution. We're just expecting it all to fail. I don't know.
Well, Val, we can't even agree to get rid of plastic bags.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I read something that Kroger was initiating. Kroger's the largest retail grocer in this country. That they have decided to do away with the use of plastic bags. So I went to Kroger today and I asked the lady at the counter and I said, "Hey, you're using plastic. I thought that there was an initiative going here." She says, that's going to be like 2025 or something. We'll be dead by then. You know? But it just moves at a glacial pace, I suppose.
Okay, well let me put it this way. What would you agree to live past 5 more years? Would you agree to, what would you be open to, receptive to say, yeah, I'll do that so we don't die in 5 years?
Good. Right. Oh, your voice is gone.
Well, I'm just
No, I'm saying, what would I agree to live to? Let me put it this way. I'd agree to privation, any amount of privation, like most Americans, as long as it is shared equally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
But when you've got the wealthy,
got it.
When you got the wealthy parasitically sucking up, the majority of the resources while everybody else suffers. Nah. That I don't agree with.
It's what's happening.
Exactly.
Hey guys, just wanting to let you know we're about it's 9, is it 10:15 your time, I guess?
10:15 our time,
8:15 my time. I don't know if you want to read some of the comments that you want to pick out, those of you who can see them, and maybe try and wrap it up a little bit. I do have to work in the morning. I know it's Saturday, but I still have to work. It sucks.
Anthony Davis is saying, I think Bill Gates is working with others trying to develop a carbon capture for energy method. About 100 large wind turbines lined up like a wall. I've seen the pics. So there's a few things going on, I guess, but so much of it is too little, too late, and
so that's
the pessimism. If we were approaching this like some kind of like Val was saying, some kind of Manhattan project where all the resources that were necessary were poured into it, we might have a chance to come up with
and that's what
some kind of a solution. But what is going on now is nothing like that, and nobody really is taking any action.
And 50% of the people on the planet, at least, don't even believe it's an issue right now. Like, because the meeting is happening in 2100. It's not happening now, so why should they worry about it?
But it is happening now. I mean, we're going to be experiencing.
I don't know what to tell you with all the flooding and all
flooding and the extreme weather all over the world. We didn't have this kind of thing when I was a kid in the 60s. you would hear of natural disasters, but they were rare. They were something you heard about maybe once or twice a year,
Exactly.
not
Exactly.
constantly the way
Yeah,
we
not
have them
every
now.
other day, which is happening
Yeah,
right now. Every other day, this place is flooding, that place is flooding. There's tornadoes everywhere.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
happening everywhere right now. And in the summer, we're going to have all these heat waves, like simultaneous heat waves all over the world. Again, we had some last year. We're going to have those again.
And how do
So
we deal with them? By running air conditioning, which is putting
yeah,
out more
it's
carbon
going.
into the atmosphere. And it's just
It's
this
another
feedback
feedback
loop,
loop. That and like with extreme cold, using all the air condition or the heaters
The heat, yeah.
and the heating oil. They had heating oil shortages.
Mhm.
Indie outsider Dave experienced that himself during those the Arctic vortex.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was brutally cold here this last winter, really, really bad. And I feel bad. I have a gas furnace, and I don't have an alternative,
Oh, Pink
fortunately.
Barrio was here, guys. I'm sorry, I just have to say, hey, Pink Barrio, because I watch his show, Climate Guy.
Density McCartney says the illusion is intensifying. Indeed.
Hey,
Listen to Black Bear News. Yeah, he talks about 8 billion salmon die off around Norway from algae.
Yeah,
That's happening here too. Sorry.
Pink Barrio. I forgot to say his comments. Is one thing people could do is reduce the meat consumption to reduce methane and deforestation. We've already went through that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what good it's maybe going to do at this point, but um, I'm all for anything that can mitigate the issue. So
Well, I
anyway,
have to admire these kids that do that are doing Extinction Rebellion, and at least they're doing something. They may be it may be futile, but to see at least people trying to make the changes that are necessary, and
Right. Right.
it's just going to have to grow as things get worse. Now the question is how much denialism is going to go on 2 years, 5 years from now, when the weather events keep intensifying, when the Arctic ice is gone, and we have a blue ocean event. Well, then all of a sudden people go, "Oh, I guess it's real, and I guess we better do something about it." But if there's no political will to do anything, and there's just denialism,
they
then
just want to
then
die rich, I guess. I That's the only thing I can figure is like, see how many toys you can get before you're dead and
yeah.
drag everyone else with you.
It's
So
a horrible, horrible, selfish way to think, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are like that who think, well, this won't affect me. I'm old. I'm going to die in a few years, and it'll be somebody else's problem
that's
to
my
deal with.
mother. She thinks
Yeah.
that way. And
Mhm.
I'm in Utah where everybody just, oh, it's so far away. It's not going to happen. They
Well,
Yeah.
your
think I'm
mother,
flipping nuts. They think I'm crazy. They think I'm off my rocker.
well, your
Hmm.
mother must still be young, Chris, because my mother is at the age, she's 92, where she is beyond material things. She really couldn't care less. She
Well,
doesn't
my
spend
mom's
any
getting,
money because she's just focused on keeping the the vessels moving. you
my
know.
mom's a Trump supporter, doesn't believe in climate change being as bad as it is, and she actually thinks if you try to do anything about it, that it will bring socialism to the country, and that would be the worst
Ah,
possible thing that could ever
yes.
happen. That's my mom. That's what I get to deal with, and this state is mostly like that. Like
Mhm.
that's
And,
Um,
that's who I deal with.
and
my,
how do you talk to somebody like that who
You don't.
refuses to face reality? And I think it's hard for people to accept because it does seem like this doesn't affect my daily life. I can still drive my car. I'm still going, to the grocery store and getting the food that I need. And so as long as it's not affecting me personally, I don't think it's really going to affect us all,
right,
in the
right,
long run.
right.
And it is. It's just stark reality that we have to face. And I dread getting older. I'm 62 now, so in 10, I figure maybe I've got 10 years left, 20, God help me, but if I have 20, but um, and I don't want to see the world collapsing even after my lifetime. I don't want to see, this, or to be aware that there was nothing I did, that this just went on and on and on, and there was nothing I did. At least I can speak out, and we can all speak out. We can gather strength together. We can try and change our little part of the world and try and bring others on board to start facing this. And all of these dire things that are going to happen is assuming that there won't be a nuclear war in the meantime, which would be the end entirely. That would screw up everything beyond any sort of hope of repair.
Or the nuclear power plants melting down with a severe weather event.
Or in America's case, civil unrest characterized by right wingers loaded to the teeth with military style armaments.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that seems a great fear. I'm being asked here on the chat.
Yeah, let's get through the chat and say hi to everybody, because we really got to get out of here pretty quick.
All right.
Bio's asking, how long do I think, was it, the oceans will die? Well, first of all, I would say I'm not necessarily the person to ask. I'd like to throw it on the panel here, but my personal feeling is that current rates, unless we change the polluting, plastic pollution and overfishing and fishing rates of the ocean, I don't think there'd be a fish alive in another 5 years.
Add Fukushima to that, and
add Fukushima to that, and God knows
the acidification of the oceans, and as well as the
right, the coral bleaching,
the algae,
in fact,
the red tide, things like that are happening all over.
In fact,
the dead zones.
In fact, I would say, as of today, right now, I'd be hesitant to eat anything from the ocean, and I've been a lifelong seafood.
I know, I love seafood, but now it's like, okay, if I treat myself to it as farm raised, as horrible as that is, I would rather have the farm raised than take another thing out of the ocean that's probably already poisoned. All those whales washing up on shore. Like, how many were there last week that washed up on the shores? There was.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. And a lot of that, there's a theory about why that's happening, is that they drop these depth charges into the ocean looking for, or sonar, I think, and it's constant booms looking for oil. And of course, these are really sensitive creatures with that communicate, and have through hearing.
That's their communication is dumbing them down because they can't hear each other communicate. So they're losing their communication skills.
Can you imagine if there was like a pound going on in your head? You might want to kill yourself. I mean, and these are highly intelligent creatures, right?
Oh my God, we can start off on so many other topics.
I know. We're going to have to wrap it up, I think, because Christine has to drive 45 miles to work tomorrow.
Wow. And okay, yeah, we'll leave. And yes, there's a veritable killing fields going on right now in the oceans.
Yeah, there is. But gosh, I'd really like to thank Pink Barrio for showing up. That was really cool. And Density McCartney and Paul. Oh yeah, that's you. There's another Paul on here though. There was another Paul that was fairly new here. So I really like it when new people show up.
I'd like to thank Anthony Davis for showing up, because I asked him specifically earlier today, and he said he would. And so thank you, Anthony, for showing up.
Anthony's awesome. He comes all the time. And we were chatting on a little bit on Humpty Dumpty Tribe, I think, earlier.
And Basil, of course, he's been off grid for 15 years and only have a phone line to talk to you guys. Only one of my friends has joined me, so it goes. And Basil, I have to admire your foresight in becoming off grid and learning how to do the solar panels and everything, because honestly, it's so expensive and difficult. Solar panels are outrageously expensive for what they are.
They definitely are.
And
but we can just start to lower our lifestyle a lot. And I think that's one thing. I mean, but it needs to be, everybody needs to be together, and not just our country and your country. I keep forgetting we're in different countries. Veg.
We're just America Junior here in Canada. We're basically the same country.
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
owned by America. All the American corporations own 80% of Canada, so we're not that different, really, except that we have socialized medicine and you don't. But other than that, not really a whole lot of difference.
Right. Right. Yeah. Chris, I can't believe it's probably like 3:30 by now over there in I don't know. He's across the pond.
Across the pond.
Well, I want to thank you, Christine, for inviting me on your show. Of course, I'm very fond of both Veg and Val, as I am of you. And
I'm like, really? What am I? No, just kidding.
It's
really
a mutual
like,
love fest.
I really do
I
like
know. Well, I love all you guys, and
coming
that's
on.
why I love inviting you guys on because it's just not. I mean, it just builds community. That's what it does. Having y'all.
And I'll try and make one of those Monday programs, okay? Because I love the concept, which is developed by
This is
you,
basically a
and
Monday on a Friday.
I think it's a great concept that you've come up with, and I
It
hope.
was Anita. I think she was here. Anita. That was her kind of. Well, she named it.
Well, it's a great idea, and
It
if
is.
I can make an advertisement here, Brian and I are going to be on in 20 minutes. So if anybody still has some more energy,
Head over
please
to Head
join
in
us.
the Box.
Head in the
Okay.
Box. I'm a big Head in the Box fan, actually, Paul. I appreciate you and Brian very much. Enjoy the show. And it's just great to have met all these people that are wonderful people that I consider great friends of mine. So thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Val. Thank you, all the people in the chat. A lot of you have watched my
They're Chris from
videos.
Yorkshire, England.
Oh,
But
that would be Yorkshire, as in Yorkshire pudding.
Yeah.
Americans always say Shire.
and Val and Veg, if you want to join us on the show, meaning through Skype, feel free. Would love to have you both.
I'd love to be on there.
About
Sometime.
20 minutes, okay? Sorry, Christine, that you're going to bed so early. Otherwise, you could join us as well.
Okay, well, maybe one time when I'm not working on Saturday.
Okay, we'll have you on, okay?
All right, yeah.
Thanks,
And you're
Chris.
always welcome. I'll always send you a link. If you can make it, you can. Can't.
Yeah, it's so easy. All you do is press the link. I love it.
I know, right?
Fantastic.
Okay, love you, Val. Love you, Veg. Love you, Paul. Thank you so much for tonight. And all you guys, thanks for coming. Bio, thanks for being my new moderator. Oops, Paul. Bio's kind of just two-timing you. So.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Be well, everybody. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Have a good one.
So you guys just join us when we start if you want to come on, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Take care, Paul. Take care, Val. Take
Hope
care,
we see
Chris.
you both shortly.
All right. Bye.
Head in the box. See you.
Thank you.